Well, the NFL is at the midseason mark right now, and as we get ready for what should be a pretty crazy final few months of the NFL season, here to talk about it with us is one of the all-time great receivers, who is now an analyst and always excited whenever we can get Amani Toomer back on our Village Inn hotline here to talk a little sports. Amani, first off, now that the NFL is past the midway point, you tell me, biggest surprise and biggest maybe disappointment so far through the season, in your opinion?
Oh, biggest surprise is definitely the Carolina Panthers being undefeated. After they handled the Green Bay Packers the way they did this past weekend, that's definitely the biggest surprise. And you look at the numbers, and you look at it's really hard to figure out why they're as good as they are. On defense, they're really good, and we all know that. But Cam Newton, he's not having his best year. You look at the numbers he's having. If you look at completion percentage and touchdowns and all that stuff, it's actually down from his normal, what he normally does. But the fact that he finds a way to win and he's getting his team to play well, I like the fact that if you look at Cam Newton, he passes the eye test. Now, if you look at the stat sheet, it might not. So I think that they should use their eye test more than they use the stat sheet to figure out who's a good player, who's not. It's not baseball. Baseball is a much different sport. I think people in baseball are trying to bring over their statistics and all that stuff into football, and I just don't think that it really has a place.
So, Monty, I would agree with you on Carolina. They've been a very pleasant surprise this year, and every time you think they're going to lose, they just come back and play better and better, especially on the defensive side of the ball. What about disappointment? Give me a team that you really expected big things from that just they've not lived up to expectations.
Well, the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, this is a team that should be, way far ahead in their division, even though they are in first place. But a lot of disappointing losses. Andrew Luck's playing bad, even though he had a better game this week, but he's out for 2 to 6 weeks with a lacerated kidney and some other injuries, rib injuries. I just was very surprised that they've dropped some of the games that they have dropped. They don't look good on defense. They're not really physical. I mean, they look throughout the entire season, even though they look better, against the Broncos. It's just a team that I'm very perplexed about and can't understand the futility of that team.
What about your old division, the NFC East? The Giants right now are in first place. They've got a 5-4 record at this point. They've had some very tough losses early in the season where they couldn't hold the fourth quarter leads. But you look at the rest of that division right now. Eagles are starting to come on a little bit. The Cowboys have lost 6 in a row. They're in a massive tailspin right now. And then you kind of have the Redskins close by. How do you handicap the East the rest of the year?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I don't think there's this team that stands out better than to be the best team. I think the Eagles are playing the best football right now. I think the Giants are a team that is much in need of JPP to come back strong. He has to get those 10 sacks to boost his pay back to where it would have been if he wouldn't have had a firework incident. But I don't think there's any real team that's going to make any noise in the playoff, regardless if they win the division or not. I think this is a division that's down. I think Tony Romo being hurt really hurt the entire division, because I think if the Cowboys had Tony Romo healthy, their record would be they would definitely be at the tops of the division.
Meanwhile, there's a story today where Greg Hardy is proclaiming his innocence on his Twitter handle. This has been making big headlines the last couple of weeks. It kind of slowed down until today's story with Hardy and the Twitter. Your thoughts on that whole situation? You've played with a lot of guys over the years in the league, but you look at somebody like this who has the ability to impact the defense like Hardy, yet clearly has plenty of baggage off the field. How would you handle this?
I mean, the guy is, what he says is true. I mean, he's innocent until proven guilty now. We all know, we all think differently, but I think we're mad at the wrong people here. I think we should be mad not at the Cowboys, not the NFL. We should be mad at North Carolina for allowing him to walk free. If he did what he did, he should be in prison. And the fact that you can buy your way out of prison in Carolina, to me, it's a big problem. I have a big problem with that. And that's where the banger should lie. Not with a football team, not with a football league. The football is not supposed to, set laws or create this type of huge impact over, our society. Football is just entertainment, and I just people are not really seeing the picture here. The fact that this guy shouldn't be walking the streets, and you're mad at the wrong people.
Talking football right now with Amani Toomer here on our Village Inn hotline as Sports Talk continues. All right, let's look at MVP candidates early on. I mean, you talk about the kind of year he's had, especially with all the speculation of the early season suspension that never happened. Is anybody in the National Football League, in your opinion, playing better on a week-to-week basis than Tom Brady?
Ooh, that's a tough thing. I mean, that whole team is humming really well. Tom Brady he's unbelievable. I think Aaron Rodgers is playing well. I think Cam Newton should be in the mix because his numbers don't tell the story. But if you look at what he means to that organization, that team, I don't think there's a guy playing the quarterback position in the league this year doing more with less. I mean, you lose Travis Benjamin early in the year, your main receiving target, and you don't really supplement him with anybody else. Greg Olsen is a great option, but you're running with the tight end. I mean, that's your leading receiver is the tight end, and I find it hard. I mean, you look at Aaron Rodgers and how he's struggling with receivers that are twice as good as the receivers that Cam Newton's playing with. I think he's playing very well, even though his numbers don't really dictate that.
Amani, I read a story about you about 15 years ago. It was in the New York Times archives, and it talked about how you had suffered a concussion against the Rams, but on the way back to the sidelines, you passed all the tests, you wanted to keep playing, you went back in the huddle and continued, and he talked about that and how you kind of fought through it. And then I see a story a few days back that Wes Welker is back in the league with the Rams. Now, it's a different case there. He's had 6 to 10 concussions, possibly more, he doesn't know. Doctors say he's okay, yet there's a lot of people really concerned that he's one hit away from having serious health problems down the road. I know where you stand personally on this subject, but in a case like Welker, good idea, bad idea that he's trying to come back and can continue to play?
Well, that's why it's a free country. He can make the decision for himself, and I think that's where the NFL messed up originally, trying to cover up the effects of concussions. There's a lot of guys like Wes Welker that will still play regardless of the risk. They just love the sport that much, and it's something that's in them. They have to do. I mean, people, do all kinds of crazy things, skydive, all this stuff. But it's okay when they can do it. But football players, they have to be extra sheltered and extra pampered. I don't get that. I think that a lot of people do risky behavior, riding motorcycles and all that stuff, and I think it's just part of life. Some people like to do those types of things, and I think football's a dangerous sport. It's not for everybody, and there's a inherent risk anytime you step on the field.
My thoughts on this whole situation is pretty simple. If you had no idea what the risks are and you go out and do it and then you suffer the effects afterwards, that's one thing. But if you're completely aware with everything you're doing and you're putting yourself through and you accept that, then ultimately you really can't fault that individual. They're taking a chance. That's all it is.
It is. I mean, anytime you step on the football field, regardless of if you know what's going to happen or if you don't know what's going to happen, down long term, it's not good. Getting knocked out and put to sleep is not a good thing. It definitely has some type of effect. If you talk to older football players or even old boxers, it has a cumulative effect. And I mean, you look at boxing as a sport. I mean, people say it's dying and all that, but Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao still made a lot of money. So I don't know how dead boxing is. I just think that sports. There are dangers in sports. There are dangers in life. Some people are willing to step up and take those chances, and some people don't think it's worth it. And obviously, Wes Welker thinks it's worth it, and he's putting his life in his hands. But he put his life in his hands millions and millions of times before every time he straps on some football pads.
Well, Amani, it's great having you back on. Appreciate the insight as always. We'll look forward to having you back on here before the end of the year and talk a little more NFL with you.
Oh, thanks a lot. I appreciate your time.